You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realise this and you'll find strength. If I'm doing something to the best of my ability, and if that's all I can do, then that's it. Am I saying the right things? Am I doing the right thing? Bought my first property. I put the offer in when I was 17, but I actually bought it when I was 18.
What's your dreams? What's your ambitions? What's your goals?
Freedom.
What's up guys, my name's Lewis Phelps and I've started a podcast. I've listened to hundreds of podcasts, but I've never seen one's focus on people before they have achieved greatness. So here it is. Let's talk past, present and future with some young, passionate, inspiring people who are only just getting started.
So why do you want this job?
Yeah, literally.
Alright, so first of all, to be fair, I need to know as well. What do you do?
I do. I suppose primarily is sales. So I would say sales at a hydration firm, which makes it sound really fancy. I sell water products. So I sell like water coolers, boiling hot taps, things like that.
Sales in a
Hydration firm.
hydration
To sound
firm.
posh, yeah.
And how long have you been doing that?
Coming on now, I think I joined in August of 2020, I think it was. 2021, August 2021. So I don't know what that is, probably about 16 to 18 months now.
When did we do our walk?
Oh God, that was ages ago, up Cheddar Gorge.
Was that 2021?
Yeah, it's got to be. Because
So
was I doing it then?
Yeah, you might have been.
I might have been. I don't know whether I was still at the bank then.
Yeah, that's why I said what do you do? Because I
Yeah.
swear you're at a bank.
I was at a bank for a good while. I left that in, surprisingly, the August that I joined the company I'm in now.
Okay, so 2021 we did the walk.
Yeah.
Then you joined
Then
in
I
August.
joined, the newer company, which has been great. It's something that pays the bills at the end of the day.
Yeah, are you
Yeah.
enjoying it?
Yeah, I think the message that the company sort of puts over, which is massively on sustainability at the moment, especially with the current sort of crisis that we're in at the moment anyway, it feeds quite nicely into that. And the fact that I'm quite charismatic anyway. I'm quite a talker. I can talk to people. So sales is always something that was going to be a strong point for me. It just took me to actually get into that environment to then actually, properly explore it. I've noticed we've both gone for the blue.
I know. In short, because we'll go
Yeah.
in depth with it later on, what's your dreams? What's your ambitions? What's your goals? In just like one sentence for each one. So dreams.
Yeah, freedom is
Freedom.
a massive one, and it covers all sort of aspects, financially, sort of mentally, time and travel as
Yeah.
well. Just being free in doing what I can do and what I want to do, basically.
What would you say your ambitions are for
I
the
think
future?
my ambition at the moment primarily is to build up what I've already got going, which we'll come into in a minute, but also to be able to travel and work at the same time. I feel like, especially in the day and age we live in now, with the amount of technology, Zoom and COVID showing us what we can actually achieve, I don't see myself staying in the UK, all year round. So definitely a big ambition and big goal, really.
I just want to talk about like mindfulness. What do you think about mindfulness practice? Do you do it? Do you meditate? What sort of meditation?
Yeah.
Do you do anything like that?
Yeah, 100%. I think primarily recently it's been the cold shower theory. So I don't have the benefit of having a cold bath like you do outside. But cold shower, so in the mornings after I've taken the dog for a walk, I'll get in the shower, and normally the last 30 seconds to a minute is cold shower, where I'm trying to focus on breathing. But the other sort of mindfulness that I have is my sleeping routine is something that I take good care of and really important to me. So whilst falling asleep, there's actually meditation sort of centres on Spotify, which is sort of a repetition of sentences and words and things like that in a lower tone that slowly just play over whilst you're falling asleep, whilst you're asleep. And that's something that for me personally has worked, or it might be a placebo, I don't know, but it certainly feels like it works. Just about sort of self-love, confidence, sort of trying not to procrastinate, things like that. So yeah, that's something that I've focused on primarily. I say primarily, probably within the last sort of 6 months has been something that's been I'm conscious of and conscious of trying to do.
And what are those words, if you give us some?
Yeah, so it's surprising how many I can't think of now that.
Yeah, to be
not
fair-
live to it for hours.
It's probably like
mental.
subconscious more than
I think it is primarily subconscious, but primarily is just trying to get over to you that you are worth more than what you think you are. You know, the only person that can actually change anything or do anything in your life is you. You have full control over that. I think that's something, and again, something I speak with my mentor with massively, is just that control and understanding of what I can do personally rather than focusing on sort of the outside events.
School, going back to school, or even from selling sweets. So when did the selling sweets come into play? When did you
Trying to think now.
Start selling sweets?
Yeah,
And what was the mindset?
I think primarily school was, I didn't enjoy school. I didn't enjoy the lessons. I didn't enjoy any of that. But I did enjoy the social side of it. And I wasn't scarce of friends either. I had quite a good group of mates, and I still do. A different group of mates now, but still able to keep people close to me and choose people wisely. But yeah, I started selling chocolate, sweets, drinks, all of that, probably in about late year 8 to year 9, yeah. Which is where it just started with strips of like refreshers for like 10p.
And why?
Bought them for 5. I think primarily it goes back to the upbringing. Is we weren't poor, but money was always talked about. And I remember sort of mum and dad sitting at the table for their monthly meeting, stressing about money. Money wasn't an issue primarily, but I remember, you know, mum and dad came through the financial markets in 2007, 2008, 2009, which was the housing market crash. And they also got flooded in the 2007
Early
floods.
day.
Yeah, so money when I was 6 at that point, actually. I was 5 and then turning 6. Money was always sort of an understanding, and it wasn't something they spoke to me about, but it was something that I picked up clearly subconsciously. None of my family have made their own businesses, or they've always all been employed. I think maybe my great uncle was probably the only one that sort of had his own business at one point.
Okay.
But yeah, I think selling chocolates and sweets, I think it was just supply and demand. I think that was primarily it. I needed something to do and I wanted money. I don't know why I want money. I think probably just to open up as many possibilities as possible. But yeah, it literally just went down to the shop, pack of refreshers, they were 5p each, and I would sell them for 10.
So did you have the thought to buy them in the shop, or did you have the thought before and you're like, let's go to the shop and buy them?
Do you know what? I can't really remember because it's that so far back, but I remember very, very quickly getting very serious about it, and it quickly turned into sort of weekly shopping trips to whatever big supermarket it was, and spending 300 quid on chocolates and sweets, spending, you know, mad amounts on drinks. And then it was actually my ex-girlfriend's mum that was probably the biggest advocate for me. My parents are both very risk adverse, so they wouldn't.
Did they know the selling sweets?
They did, but they weren't at that point. I probably wasn't living with them very often, because I lived with my ex-girlfriend for quite a big period of time of my life back then. So it was really her mum who really gave me motivation to actually, you're making good money, go and keep doing it. She used to take me to the shops and buy all the chocolates and sweets, and I remember coming back with, you know, the big life for life bag, they're called.
Full of sweets.
Yeah, literally full of sweets, 5 or 6 of them just full of sweets and drinks. We sit there, split it up into the days, and then pack my bag, and that would be it. Yeah.
How much did you make? Do you have a rough average of over time, or is it monthly or weekly?
I think
just to give some of the
weekly is
viewers
probably more than the best idea. You've got to remember, like, the academic year isn't a full 52 weeks of the year. Like, I think it's about, I don't know what works out as, it works out about 40 or something like that.
Yeah, probably even less.
Yeah. But yeah, so I was probably making anywhere from £200 to £300 profit a week.
Really?
Yeah, with no issue.
As a year 9,
as
year
a year
8.
9, year 8, year 9, year 10 was probably where it properly took off. It got to the point where I was actually asking people to borrow their lockers and to put stuff in.
Really?
The bag was just getting so heavy.
No
I had
way.
a Nike bag.
I didn't even know
had
that.
Industrial zip ties on each side because it used to break all the time otherwise. I actually gave myself sciatica because of it as well. So where the bag was on my left shoulder, and I was leaning like this, it was crunching up my right hand side and just.
Yeah, because did you have another
sciatic
bag
nerve.
for school? Because I remember you had a massive bag.
Yeah,
and
no,
that
that was
had all
it.
the sweets.
That was it. Yeah.
But did you put your books in there?
Yeah, books, everything.
No way.
And I think actually I think it was year 9, it must have been, I bought my first big purchase, which was a MacBook Air, I think it was.
Was it?
And I used to take that to school. I didn't have books because my handwriting is so shocking.
Really?
I'd rather just type, and it was so much easier.
Okay.
So I literally used to just carry
use
around a
that
laptop.
money to buy yourself a laptop.
And that's what I ended up taking around instead of books.
Mad.
Yeah. I also bought like sort of the first half of my first car with my sweet money as well.
Did you?
Yeah. So
What car was that again?
It was a Golf, a 1.2 Golf I had in black. It was a good car.
Nice.
It went through some issues, but it was all right in the end.
And how much was that to buy?
I think it was about 4.2. I think I
Was
paid
it?
for it. Yeah. This would have been back in probably 2018 because I passed my driving test in January 2019. But yeah, back in 2018, I think I bought my first car, and I think my parents paid the other half. Like again,
Yeah.
money wasn't scarce, but it was definitely known about in the family. So yeah, that was at that point. I think getting those two purchases, and primarily, I missed out massive parts, but living with my girlfriends and my ex-girlfriends now, but living with her family. Having that amount of money and then being able to treat her, being able.
What
to
age was that? Were you living? Was that through school? You were living?
Yeah.
And why?
It
Was
wasn't
that
necessarily through school. I think it was towards the back end of school. I think I had just left school because I had just started really my first job. I remember starting my first job, and it was actually at the local county council. I was just an admin assistant, but I used to go from hers and get on the bus and then go to work, or my mum used to pick me up. And then as soon as I drove, there was no reason for me to go back home. I very, very, very quickly became living at that house with my ex-girlfriend. And I don't know why, really. I think it was primarily to get out.
There was no trouble at home?
No, nothing
like
really. And I think it was primarily, I was probably blinded a lot by love, I think, as you are at that age.
Yeah. Is that first relationship?
Proper, yeah. And I mean, we were together for 3 years, and it was a very, very, towards the end, it was very, very difficult, but I've got so much love for that person. And so much respect. And I think looking back on that now is what's probably made me become so self-aware and so much more onto improving myself.
Yeah.
Because you notice that situation and you go, actually, young me was in that situation, spending all this money on going out, because I wasn't always saving it. It was I was going out.
Yeah, obviously you're year 9, year 10.
Yeah,
you're getting 200, 300 pound a week. You're not working, paying rent.
Mad.
No, nothing.
Rent,
so it's like
anything.
that 200, 300 pound a week in that day and age.
Disposable.
Yeah. But sometimes you got to be a kid and you got
100%. I mean, I remember one time we went to Bullring in Birmingham, and we actually bought rucksacks for each of us because we didn't have enough hands to carry bags of what we'd spent. I think I spent, I think it was probably just over £1,000 on a shopping trip for both of us. And at that age, I mean, I probably would have been 17.
Yeah.
It's madness, really. And I think that's probably had a big influence on why I'm so disciplined now with my money, because I've seen the stupid sort of money spends that I used to make, and now it's a lot more disciplined.
How has that past affected the person that you are today? Obviously, we spoke about the relationships. From my point of view, with my ex, when we split up, I feel like that has been the biggest growth in my life. That year after your split, when you come out, you have to fend for yourself, and then I think that's when the growth comes. But how has all the past relationships, school, sweets, your family, how has that shaped who you are today?
Yeah, I think going back to what you were saying, is getting comfortable in that situation, in that environment, and then when that ends, it pushes you straight into an uncomfortable zone. So for me, I was moving back to my parents, which, although saying that now feels really weird, back then it didn't feel weird. Moving back to my parents, being by myself again, and learning to try and be comfortable with myself. But I think that's definitely put more onto my self-awareness. Like I said earlier, it's a gift and a negative as well, because being so self-aware, it's good because you can focus on what you need to improve and what I need to do to get better and where I want to be. But it also makes you very anxious. It can make you go, oh God, am I saying the right things? Am I doing the right thing? Are these people going to like who I am? Sort of things like that. But I think primarily my past, sort of in the past, and looking at school was a big one for me, where I started sixth form and did 2 months of it and then left. I couldn't deal with it, didn't like the educational system anymore. Our school also changed to biometric thumbprints instead of cash, so my business was down the drain, and that was it. So primarily the plan was to stay at sixth form and try and just sell these sweets continuously and make the money through sixth form, come out of A-levels and then go into a job. But that very, very quickly went out the window. And obviously school isn't compulsory, so I actually went into an apprenticeship straight away afterwards. I went and did customer service, which again was no good. I think I ended up leaving after 6 months. I then went to the bank, which the bank is where I made my money to then move on to the bigger projects. The bank was probably the best place for me at that age. It created a lot of discipline. I was talking to people who were in financial difficulty, especially with their mortgages, and looking at taking people's houses away. So it's very morally exhausting and emotionally exhausting, but it was a very, very good job. So yeah, I made a lot of money there, and bought my first property. I put the offer in when I was 17, but I actually bought it when I was 18.
Flat house?
A flat. It was 2-bed flat, 2-bathroom. One of the bedrooms had an ensuite on. And that was my goal all the way through the back end of sort of saving money from chocolates and sweets, then moving into sort of the county council and then into the bank. But then obviously me and my ex-girlfriend split up in the time that I put the offer in. I remember her coming round, seeing it, put the offer in, and by the time the flat had gone through, we weren't together. So it was very emotional of going, oh shit, I've achieved the goal now, but I haven't got the person that I wanted to build it with here. So yeah, that was a very big flip, but it's one of those moments walking into that flat for the first time and seeing what I had achieved at like 18, 19 was mental. I couldn't even comprehend it myself, but I knew at that point I just needed more of it. And I was lucky enough to sort of be able to research and understand how I can make money off the flat then. So I was renting out a room, and that paid for literally all my bills and everything that I needed. I was actually making money off it.
How was the stresses through that? Was it stressful? Was it okay? Was
the flat, primarily buying it, was the most stressful part, and selling it is the most stressful part. Once you have it, it's very, very easy.
Okay.
It's minimal sort of maintenance because it's a flat. At the end of the day, not everything in there needed to be replaced. We put some new, I think one of my tenants put some new flooring down at one point. Didn't ask for any money, but I gave them some of their rent back. They painted the walls themselves, so again, just gave them some of the rent back. I didn't have to do anything. So it was a really blessed time that I had tenants that were willing to actually work and do stuff on the property. Yeah.
Have you sold that property?
Yeah, I sold that now. I sold that back in, I think I got the cash through in November of 2022.
How much do you buy and sell it for?
Yeah, so I bought it peak COVID time, really. It was 120,000. I knocked $5,000 off the asking price, which was quite nice. And then by the time I was in it, I can't even remember what time period it was.
Did you put 20% down, 10% down?
I put down, it was because it was COVID, it was actually 15% of the property value. So I don't know whether you'd remember, but 5 and 10% mortgage has just been taken off the market.
Oh, really?
Because everybody was obviously
I only know like
COVID.
10% and then like 25%
for
buy to let.
Yeah. So there's a whole range of products out there now. You can actually get 20% buy to lets now, which is what I'm looking at the moment. But yeah, I sold the flat and I made, really good money on it, probably nearly 30k on renting out, as well as the appreciation. So I bought it for 120. I think I sold it for 143 in the end. Yeah, and I think I only had it for about 16 to 18 months. So to be able to make that amount of money, it automatically made me think, look what I'm doing with it. But even behind the scenes, even with the flat, I was still working hard at sort of the bank I was at. And even at sort of the new job I'm at now, because I'm trying to think now. I think I started the job where I am now just as I was starting to look at selling the flat. Yeah. So it then officially sold in November just gone. And it was at that point that I sort of went, right, what is the next step? And for me, it was, I had quite a bit of knowledge of what I wanted to do. We live in a day and age now where there's so much information out on technology, on the internet, that you can sort of teach yourself quite a lot about any sort of subject. But for me, it was because I'm such a perfectionist, it also gives me the option to procrastinate quite a lot. Yeah. So I always want everything to be perfect before I press go. And sometimes that isn't the case. So I actually went and got myself a property mentor. He's called Gary. And this is my second month with him now.
Do you pay him?
Yeah. So it was $8,000 for the year. But for me, obviously everybody goes, oh my God, it's $8,000. But for me, it was, I have someone who's done this before with a multi-million-pound portfolio who's going to be holding my hand all the way through it, which for me is what I needed, because again, self-awareness, I understood that I didn't quite have the amount of dedication that I needed. I needed someone to keep me in check. I've always been disciplined with money, and I'm always good at spreadsheets. I'm very logical. Yeah. So my money, I've got a 3-year plan at the moment as of what my money will look like in 3 years' time if everything goes well.
Yeah.
So that side of it was fine, but it's more of the discipline of getting up, going to the gym, like you've said, actually sitting down and typing out some work and going to view properties and what the next one is going to be. But yeah, that's something that Gary is very much sort of putting onto me quite a bit at the moment, is making sure that I'm taking the moves and taking the action to then obviously achieve what I want to achieve. The past is only beneficial now because of how much work I've looked back on it.
Okay.
I think my past is something that I very rarely divulge into on a personal level for myself. But most recently, I've definitely dug more into it and sort of tried to understand more about what shaped me, how I am, and also just what sort of things have changed and what sort of things can like improve.
Yeah,
I
it's
think
also reflecting sort of. Like,
yeah,
sometimes
massive
it's
reflection
hard
sessions.
to when you look back and see how much you've done. Like you said, when you went into that flat, you probably didn't look at your past until you looked at that flat and then you're like, wow, I've done this.
Yeah, massively. And I think primarily I'm always someone that doesn't feel like I'm doing enough. So I'm always trying to do more, especially towards my own goals. But yeah, it's since this flat sold, to be fair, is where I've sort of gone. My main thing is if I don't have a target in place, I'm very demotivated. It's where I become very deflated, very depressed. So I need something in place to then aim for.
And what's that?
So yeah, when I sold the flat, it very much quickly dawned on me that I didn't have a goal in place. Okay. I sort of had a rough idea of what I wanted to do, but I didn't know the next steps. So journaling came into my life quite a bit. I'm not a strict journalist. I don't sort of write there every day. But when I feel like need to write, I will do so, normally after a nice cup of tea and biscuits after night. But yeah, it's something that is very self-reflection. You got to be very self-reflective on what you can do, and also noticing that you don't have to be perfect is a big one. And working on yourself can be anything. For me, one of the main things was I'm just going to get up and make my bed. That was the one thing that I needed to do. Like, disciplined with money, but not disciplined in any other area of my life. But yeah, looking at the past, the self-reflection is the biggest thing that I would say to people, is if you can get some look back and just sit there and with pen and paper in front of you and don't have any distraction, you will write something. It's inevitable. I think primarily it's shaped who I am today because I'm definitely more self-aware now as of what I need to do, but also understanding that mistakes are always made, and and
they're good.
I might make a mistake tomorrow and it might be a good or a bad one, but in 2 years' time I might look back on it and go, thank God I made that mistake, because now I know this.
So now, what's your investments? Is it properties?
So obviously, like I've said, I've been working with Gary, my property coach, for the last 2 months. So I had quite a good a good amount of money in the bank, sort of when the flat sold. And it was the largest sum of money I've had in my personal lifetime. So I sort of went, right, I need to get serious about what I'm doing. I've bought the flat, I've sold it, and that was by myself, and that was great, and I've made some money. Is that what I want to do next? And personally, it wasn't, because there wasn't as much growth as I thought there would be in just owning it. So I then explored sort of having a property coach, which was the best idea I think I've ever had. But yeah, so primarily the next sort of house I'm going to be looking at, it will be a house. It will be sort of a student let, probably based in Gloucester somewhere. But yeah, it's primarily making sure that the numbers work at the moment and making sure that I'm not overstretching myself.
Not rushing into it.
Yeah, exactly. Like but I've been lucky enough to drop a day from work, so I'm only working 4 days a week now.
Is that to focus more on this sort of side of it?
100%. So I now take off Wednesdays, which is my day. So my Wednesday has also got my non-negotiable time, which is time that regardless of whatever's happening, I've got to go and do it. Which is where I see my grandparents, so it allows me to see them a lot more. But yeah, Wednesdays now primarily is I call it my goal day, is where it's my step closer towards my goal. Obviously, it doesn't mean I'm not doing stuff on Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. But the Wednesday is where I'm solely focused on property. So a lot of it will be going to see properties, assessing them, running them through a calculator. I also see Gary in the early morning, obviously trying to get into the gym sessions.
Do you see him face to face or over
yeah,
phone?
so Originally, it was only meant to be an hour a week, but I see him face to face now, and it normally runs well over an hour. So I think our last session was about 2 hours 30. So it shows how much benefit he is bringing to me, because if we're able to talk that much and I'm still able to take on the information, to me that shows that I'm obviously interested in it. Because I wouldn't even sit for a show, I wouldn't watch a movie for 2.5 hours if I didn't enjoy it. Do you know what I mean? So I think that's definitely the biggest thing for me. I've invested in myself, is probably the biggest thing I can say. And although it doesn't seem like Gary is invested in myself, if that makes sense, he definitely is.
Yeah.
Because he takes on all my goals and he understands the type of person I am and what I need to be doing.
How did you find him?
It was actually through my sister. My sister knows him. I'm not really sure how that story goes, but she introduced me to him, and I met him once back in, I think it was May last year. And I was like, right, let me sell the flat and get everything out of the way, get myself sort of in a position where I'm happy to then obviously take the step.
You don't want to waste his time as well.
No, exactly. But yeah, so he's someone who at the moment is solely focusing on, for me, sort of my emotional sides and my control of how I see the world and sort of how I'm going to achieve my goals. Because when I sat down with Gary, I think, as we mentioned earlier on, my main goal is freedom.
Yeah.
I definitely wasn't born on this earth to work a 9 to 5 for the next 40 years and then retire with a small pot of cash.
Yeah.
For me, I want to be able to go, don't get me wrong, I want to work, like that's no question asked, but I want to work for myself and I want to work on myself and have the freedom of going, right, actually this weekend I'm going to go over to Paris and work over in Paris, or to Amsterdam or to Bali or wherever. So yeah, it's really focusing on that sort of idea of how I'm getting there and seeing the steps.
What is like your mental state at the moment?
I would say I'm content with where I am, 100%. I think happiness is such a difficult thing, because I think you can ask anybody.
Well, you got that future, don't you?
Yeah,
that's your happiness.
That's
isn't
my
it?
happiness. Yeah, and I think I'm content with how I'm doing and how I'm working through my life. But I think happiness isn't always an ongoing emotion. Like life, you're not always going to be happy throughout the whole of your life, and you're not always going to be sad throughout the whole of your life. So, if I was to analyse today, I feel like I've had a good day. Obviously, we're doing this, which is great. So for me, it's definitely, I can see where I'm going. I can see where I've been, and assessing myself now, I'm nearly in one of the best positions I've ever been in. So I'm definitely hitting the gym a lot more than I was. It doesn't mean that I'm disciplined with it, but I'm definitely hitting it more than I was.
Yeah.
And also just with the idea of my work and social life balance is quite good. I have had to work on my social life quite a lot. I've got a very, very good set of friends that I rely on, and trying to see them, as well as do the property viewings, as well as work the 4 days a week, as well as spend time with family, as well as time doing gym, juggling a lot of plates on not enough sticks really. But it's a benefit that they fully understand that, and they fully appreciate the type of person I am and what I need to do. But happiness is definitely something that I receive quite a lot of, and I'm very lucky to. But that doesn't say that I don't have those dark days. It was only sort of 2 weeks ago that I spoke to Gary, and literally the whole week I'd been sat in bed basically doing absolutely nothing, just because mentally I just wasn't there for it. And being self-aware, again, another positive and negative, I could look back on that week and go, right, you were an asshole for a week and you sat down and did nothing, and you're nowhere further than where you were, the week before. Right, but why did that happen? And what did you let slip? And what I let slip was my discipline of my own social life. And I said, right, well, I went and saw a lot more people, and I didn't go gym, which is straight away, right, I haven't had my own alone time, I haven't had my time to, gym is a sense of meditation, really. Again, with the self-awareness side of it, and this is why I always try and ask people to, if you're worried about anything, just sit down and just start writing, just a little bit. Because what you end up doing is you get your emotions out on paper, and come the next day and you look back on it and go, actually, this is a different way of seeing it. And I actually feel like this today. And like you said, I think you've got to respect all those emotions, because regardless of what people say, no one's happy 100% of the time. No one's sad 100% of the time.
Kind of just being aware. Like if you're angry in a moment, write it down. I have a journal, and things that I tend to do is not read it back.
Yeah.
And I think that's actually a massive thing. I think you need to read it back.
Yeah.
Even if it's a day, a week later, a month later, a year later. If you read it back, you're sometimes in a completely different mindset a week later.
Yeah.
And you might look at it differently, or like, you're like, I'm angry because of this. Like, even if you write, I'm angry because of this. Or like, 100%. You don't know why you're angry, but you're like, I'm angry, I haven't done anything today. And you write it all down, a week later, you come back to it like, why was I angry? Like, that's stupid.
100%.
And then you have like that clarity. And then when you feel like that again, you won't, because you'll be like, I remember that
You've
time.
reflected on it. Yeah, 100%. And I think primarily I look back onto some of my journal. I don't necessarily choose a day. I don't go to the day before. I'll just flick through and just read some of the little things that I've written. And like one of them, I think a little while back was, I want to be able to make my bed every day. And now I'm looking back and I'm going, oh, do you know what? Making my bed every day. It might not be every morning,
it's just like
but I am doing it. And I'm there like, oh God, I am achieving something.
Yeah.
But also I think as you go on throughout life, your mindset changes. So my journal's from about November last year. And, you know, I read what my sort of mindset was back then and read it now, and I'm so much clearer now than what I was. And my writing, even my handwriting when I'm doing it, is better. It's obviously just a sense of passion is going.
Yeah.
But yeah, I also think a lot of that is manifestation as well. I'm a big believer in that, and the reason I'm a big believer, it doesn't mean that I'm going to sit there and write, I want a Ferrari down 1,000 times and a Ferrari's going to pop up.
Yeah, I think people get it wrong, don't they?
Yeah. It's I want to own a property business, and I'm going to do this, and this is how I'm going to do it. And if you can positively influence it and put some work behind it, you'll be amazed how much that manifestation does come into it.
I saw a video and it was something like, write 10 goals for the next year, but write it in present tense. So I did this, I did that, I did this. I have this much money in my bank account.
Yeah.
And then he said, flip the page, come back to it a week later, come back to it a month later, and then read them all out again. Which one makes you happy?
Yeah.
Circle it, even if it's 2, new page.
Yeah.
Write that goal down.
Yeah.
Write it down, but then there's no good writing it down and not doing anything about it. Write it down, steps, how are you going to get there?
100%.
Even if they're little steps. Like if it's like, I'm going to own a company one day.
Yeah.
And your little steps, we keep on saying, make your own bed.
Yeah.
But that little step could be make your own bed every single day. Have a cold shower every single day. Because building a business is not just, I've got this product and I'm going to sell it. No. It's the whole structure behind it. What you get, night routine, daily routine.
Yeah, 100%.
Morning routine. It's what you're going to do in your life to benefit that. That shower can benefit your focus, which benefits your company.
Knock-on effects. And it's a big snowball effect, really. And surprisingly, what you've mentioned there is what Gary said to me on one of my first meetings, is write your goals down as if they're present, like as if you're living the moment now.
And that's visualizing
it 100%. And the next thing was for me that I had to realize very quickly, and one of the reasons why my timetable never really stayed on my home screen is because when you're, say for example, you're budgeting your monthly budget and you're going, right, at the moment I'm spending £500 a month on random stuff, I'm going to make that £100. It's just not doable.
Yeah.
Really, you should go, right, I'm at 500, I'll reduce down to 400, and so on and so forth. So for me, massively, I was there like, oh, I'm doing shit because I haven't had my cold shower today, I haven't made my bed, but I have been to the gym. And I felt like the day had failed because I hadn't done the first two.
Yeah.
When actually that wasn't the case at all. I was building in the gym, then the next week, like this week, I'm building my bed back into it and things like that. And it's not to say that your routine will stay in your life forever, because it won't. Every now and then it will change, and change is something we have to try and embrace as much as possible, as horrible as it is. But yeah, it's not even taking big steps, it's taking those little steps and just building them into the routine, and then adding another one when you feel comfortable enough. Because a lot of people go, right, tomorrow I'm going to wake up at 4:30, I'm going to go for a run, I'm going to come home, eat a nice healthy brekkie, and then I'm going to get into the shower and have a cold shower. Doesn't work like that, because
you might do it.
It might.
You might do it the first day.
A certain type of person to be able to go, right, I'm going to do this every day going forward now. And for me, it was very much, let's just conquer one of them. I can see the next step. I know where I want to be. Let's just take one step at a time instead of trying to balance my new breakfast routine, my new workout, my new run, my new cold shower, and all of that all at once, because it just stresses people out.
It's so important. I actually had a breakdown the other day, because obviously it came February.
Yeah.
And I was like, I haven't done anything in January.
No.
So it was a Sunday, and I was literally just like on the verge, kind of crying, thinking like, what have I done? So I picked up my book and I just wrote down, I went back in my timetable, either work, because in my head I always just think I'm working, I'm not doing anything else. My social life's rubbish. I don't really meet out with people. I want to do that more. But I wrote down everything, and I looked back at my goals from December, and my goals were like lift this in the gym, do this, and the last one was start MMA.
Oh yeah.
Right. And the reason why that was such a big goal is because I was scared, intimidated, everything. And I wrote like loads of pages before that. What's your goals? Start MMA. Everything was start MMA.
Start MMA.
And I wrote down everything that I did in January. This sounds like you just gotta like visualize
it. Yeah.
In my head, I was so down, but I wrote this down. January the 1st, January the 9th, first week. I looked at my timetable, 5 gym sessions, 1 kickboxing session.
Yeah.
Second week, 4 gym sessions, 2 six-a-side, 1 kickboxing.
Yeah.
Third week, 2 gym, so less gym. 4 football.
Yeah.
And a jiu-jitsu session.
Increasing in other areas.
Fourth week, 1 gym. This is also why I was getting so sad.
Yeah.
Because I had 1 gym.
Yeah.
Right? I had 1 gym, 4 six-a-side, and 1 boxing, 1 kickboxing, and 1 jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, that's mad busy already though.
So it got to the end of the week, and I was sad because I only had 1 gym.
1 gym, yeah.
So I was like, I've only lifted weights once this week. That's so bad. Oh my God, blah, blah, blah. Getting down on yourself.
Yeah.
And it took me to write it all out, and it kind of got tedious and I started smiling and laughing. I was literally writing down 1 kickboxing, 1 boxing, 1 jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
I was like, when I look back in December,
As a collective,
all I wanted to do was start MMA.
Yeah.
And when I write it all down, I started it. That was my one goal.
That was
Even though my gym took a hit, everything else and the reason my gym took a hit is because I started doing more stuff.
Yeah, 100%.
But it's mad how, I don't know, you have to, like you said, taking a step back can sometimes move you forward. Even just going to an MMA session, it's scary. And I've done 3 of them this week. It's
100%.
It's something that everyone needs to do. Journal, visualization, taking a step back. If you're having a bad day, I would just say write it down and take a step back and look at it.
Self-analyzation is the biggest thing you can do, because the person you want to be, only you really know that, because it's your own choices. And like you said, like you felt like you weren't doing enough, but as a collective, like you said, when you're writing it down, people do achieve a lot more than they realise. And I think that's something that I had to really take a hold of, because especially when I was younger, I didn't feel like I was doing enough. And every now and then I still don't feel like I'm doing enough, but every now and then when I do sit down and I go, right, actually this week I've done this, I've done that, done whatever, you look at it and you go, no, that's something to be proud of.
Yeah,
and
definitely.
It's those, you've got to give yourself a pat on the back, because no one else will. Like, especially with your own self-improvement, I find, luckily I don't suffer with this, but there are a few people that have friendship groups that aren't quite as open with what they're trying to achieve and what their goals are. And people can almost just ignore the fact that you're trying really fucking hard to improve your life. So yeah, if no one's giving you a pat on the back, pat yourself on the back. Like you said, go back, reanalyze it, look at what your past self has done.
And try not to look at the negatives.
Yeah.
Look at those positives. Like even if I look back on this whole month and I only did 1 session.
Yeah.
Like I was so scared last.
And it's one more than you did.
Exactly.
It's one more than you could have, like, that you would have done if you hadn't gone.
You just got to think little positives can
100%.
be huge. For your future then, what do you see and what do you want to see? Is what you want to see what you see?
Yeah. I think it's an interesting one. Future is always a good one, because obviously no control is there, and I think that's a big thing to understand. There's no control over the future. All you can do is positively influence it as much as possible, and that's again something that I've worked on with Gary. And it's actually my quote at the moment on the back of my screen is, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you'll find strength." So for me, it's like massively focus on only what I can control, and make sure that if I'm doing something to the best of my ability, and if that's all I can do, then that's it. That I don't need to worry. Because I think worry is something that stops a lot of people, being self-conscious, being worried about what might happen. The thing is you can control 1.5 things. You can control your reaction to a situation, and you can only control really half of your emotions, because the other half are going to just, when people say I have a bitch face, when people, like, some people just can't hide it.
Yeah.
And sometimes people will just cry when something happens, and some people will just shout. And that's the half that you can't control. But there is a big, big majority of the half that you can control and you can use positively, and have a positive reaction to any situation.
And a big thing, just bouncing off yours.
Yeah.
The ones you can't control, allow them.
Yeah.
Because
100%.
that's the thing that I like watching films, this sort of stuff. Sometimes I'm like tearing up and I'm like, stop them.
Yeah.
Sometimes, like, why? Like,
Yeah.
just have a little, like,
have a little no
cry.
worries.
Like, no, who cares? And also, if your body needs that,
your body
do
needs
it. Or if your body's, like, this is so stupid, but I was watching Cars.
Yeah. I love that movie. It's the only reason I've got my Mazda.
So Cars, and it was Cars 3, and it's one that people don't really like.
Yeah.
But the female car, she comes into the race for Lightning McQueen.
Yeah.
I sound so weird.
Towards the end of the app, isn't it?
Yeah.
I know the one.
And she's racing against electric cars, and she's on the outside, and he's squeezing her up against the wall.
And she jumps.
And he goes, "You're not meant to be here."
Yeah.
Right. And she jumps, pops over, and she goes, "Yes, I am."
Yeah.
And she wins. And I literally just started tearing up. I maybe like
a tear in the eye.
Yeah. No, like I started tearing up, and obviously I don't know why.
No, it's just an initial reaction.
I was watching it by myself, and I stopped myself. I was like stopping myself, and I remember when she won and everyone was like around. I literally I was like, why am I stopping myself? Let's just go. Just like I wasn't crying. I just like allowed like a tear to come down.
Happy tears.
And I was like, I then reflected on that, and I was like, why? And it then I then realised that I had like a deep sort of thing where through college and all this sort of stuff, I was doing okay for football.
Yeah.
I didn't feel like I belonged in the first team mentally.
Yeah.
So physically, I was a good footballer and that sort of stuff. But mentally, people would ping a ball into you. You'd touch the ball.
Yeah.
And I think everyone thinks I'm bad. Everyone thinks I'm bad. And I didn't feel like I belonged. And when she did that, it sounds so stupid because it's Cars.
No, but it's a good little
But when she did that, I had like flushing memories back from when I was in football and didn't feel like I belonged.
Yeah.
And it kind of made me like think, because I'm always one to dawn on the past and all this sort of stuff. And it made me think like, if I did what she did, could I be somewhere else right now? But then you also can't really...
Can't home in on that.
Yeah, it's good to look at that.
Yeah.
But it's good to be aware of it, but not too aware that you won't do anything else in the future to like...
Yeah, I think primarily, again, it goes back to that control, because you're looking back on it and you're going, right...
Can't control that now.
Can't control that now, but what you can control is your tomorrow, you know, to a certain degree. But yeah, definitely that idea of understanding what you can control, and it comes from Stoicism, which I'm not a massive believer into it, but
What's that?
Stoicism is, you're going to ask me now, it's a philosophy which very much focuses on your own understanding and persona of how you react to the world.
Okay.
So there's two quotes, both of them, that one was one of them, which is Marcus Aurelius, and the other one is Memento Mori, I think it's pronounced. It basically means remember death. And for me, death is something that I've always everybody knows about death, and people sometimes aren't comfortable talking about it, which is fair. But for me, death is inevitable, so I can't change it, just accept it. But what I can do is make my life in between now and then as amazing as possible, whenever it might come. And that probably links in quite nicely to the future part of it. So for my future primarily now is massively trying to improve my own physical health, because I'm disciplined in some areas of life, but my physical health isn't one of them at the moment. So I'm definitely hopping onto that train. I've been hopping on and off of it for quite some time. But it just, it's definitely a goal of mine now going forward. But the next thing as well is to get that next property under the belt massively. And I'd like to see sort of within the next 2 to 3 years that I'm able to sit back and look at and have my own business and leave my sales role completely, and just focus solely on my own sort of business at the moment. But as far as like love life and all that goes, I'm not really looking for anything.
No.
Like for me, I think, and it's surprising because I always hate when people say it, but I am still young. And for me, I can build so much in the next sort of 4 to 5 years of my life that I don't really feel like I need someone there right now.
Yeah.
Obviously, if someone was to come across and come naturally into my life and it vibed and it was all right, then I'll be happy with that. But I'm not going to go out searching for it. I'm not going to go onto like these Tinders and the Bumble or whatever shit it is now. I've actually deleted quite a lot of sort of social media. I've got rid of Twitter, Facebook, TikTok, all of that, mainly because I think
you won't be able to watch this podcast.
I won't be able to. I'll have to go on Spotify. But everything else. I mean, I've kept Instagram because Instagram I feel like is one that I have control over what I see, because you do end up just with loads of shite on there. Yeah. And I think primarily for me, I'm able to construct Instagram into something that's positive for me. Not everybody can do it, and I would tell people they'll go learn how to do it, because it is actually so much better when you're seeing what's positive.
And AI now, if you're feeding yourself with, let's say you start following property people, you start looking on the explore page and you start seeing property people,
100%, that's all
AI will feed that to you. Yeah. So if you're like, for me, if I'm looking at social media and looking at athletes and I'm comparing my body to them, that's straight away. It's just going to feed me that. So,
and I think that is the bad side of, it's the bad side of social media, that part at the moment where, and I think it's massively spoken about with mental health, because people do see horrendous shite on social media. But I think there is a sense of accountability there. We can't look at all these big tech companies and go, sort it out when we're the ones consuming it. How are you telling someone off for what you're consuming? Yeah. And I had to take that really literally, because my time on my phone used to be like 8 hours a day, quite
if you
easily.
Want to, if they're not going to sort it out, it's a business for them.
Yeah,
I'm now really starting to, like, even Apple, some people are like, why Apple, like, creating the same stuff all the time?
All the time.
I'm sorry, if I was their business and everyone's consuming it and everyone's buying it, I'd do the exact same.
Yeah, 100%. And people do. And especially all the time at the moment, I hear people say, I don't know why I have so much shit on my phone. I don't know why I'm looking at this. I don't know. Just say you don't like it then. Just literally, you can hold down, I think it's the 3 buttons on Instagram or whatever it is, and say, I don't like this post. Yeah. And it disappears. And like you said, AI is so intellectual now that it will just show you what you want to see. So a lot of mine is...
Use it in a good way.
Yeah, a lot of mine's property. A lot of mine is gym focused. And a lot of mine is like positive quotes and things like that. But yeah, I think the future is looking bright, and especially with my mentality at the moment and the changes and developments I've been able to make over the last couple of months.
You're in a good way.
I'm in a good way. I feel like I'm in probably the strongest position that I've been in for a long time. And I think something, I know we haven't touched a lot onto it, but friendship group is something that I'm very much focused on and very much aware of, as of trying to understand how sometimes you need to be selfish in life to be able to fully benefit yourself and the people you care about. So although I've got a very good set of friends, obviously the group of friends, the JGS lot, I've got also other little dots of friends as well. And I've got one main, probably my best mate called Bailey, who is going to be a big, big part of my journey over the next sort of year and two. He's also the one person that can look at me and go, you're just being an idiot and you just need to wake up. And I actually listen. I think primarily I'm so naive and quite jumped up really, that I always think I know what's best. And that does come across quite aggressive, not aggressive, it comes across quite annoying and quite stern at some points, especially in the professional sense. But it's something that I've been working on, and Bailey's been a massive, massive part of that, of just going, just relax for a bit, like just, you're doing all right. The main thing for me, or my main sort of feedback to anybody is start being more open with the people around you about what your goals are and how you're going to achieve them.
So then they know and they can push you.
Yeah, 100%. I think, you know, at the moment, everybody's looking at these influencers online and going, yeah, I want to be that. I want to be everywhere. I do it now. And, you know, a lot of my life goals are based on what I've seen. But for me, it's like, understand that you are your own individual person, for one, and you think completely differently to the person to the left or to the right of you. And not everything I say or you say that works for each of us is going to work for someone else. So it's really a lot of the self-reflection on it. And if you're stuck for anything, get up and make your bed. That's all you got to do. I think if you can achieve one thing tomorrow and, you know, you can get up, make your bed and your room's clean, it's great.
On to the last little thing.
Yeah.
When I messaged you yesterday, I said, find a quote. It doesn't have to be like you're searching forever. Just something that stands out to you.
Stands out, yeah.
And why did it stand out to you?
Yeah, so I'm not strictly Christian, but this quote is from the Bible, and because I think when I was younger, I was taken to church, I was baptized and all of that. But it's one quote in the Bible. It's 2 Timothy 4:12 is the exact verse. And it's along the lines of, don't let anybody think less of you because you're young. Be an example to all of around you and be a believer. And to me, I think that's massive, because young people, and especially myself in school, didn't have the push and drive from the teachers and the adults around me to actually fully understand what I was capable of. And I think if there's going to be some people out there like what I was like when I was younger, or what we were like 2 years ago when we were going, you know, this is what I want to do and I don't know how to do it, or I want to achieve this. Don't let your age be a barrier at all, and don't think, oh, I'm young now and I can't do it because I'm my age, or I can't do this because I'm restricted by that. Just find a way, or find a way of productively and positively influencing what you could possibly have. Because I think primarily kids aren't given enough credit at the moment. It's a really fucking weird time that we live in. And I think if you can just have an understanding at a young age that you are worth a lot and you can achieve a considerable amount, regardless of what you're comparing yourself to, you can achieve a lot for who you are. And I think that's the main one that stands out for me at the moment. And it's ones that stuck with me. I think that quote was in the start of my very first youth Bible. So I probably would have been about, 8. And yeah, I think that's just one that's going to stick with me for forever, probably. It's just, don't let anybody think less of you because you're young.
All right, and then to wrap it up, I think no matter how young you are, you'll always have advice for anyone.
Yeah.
Everyone's gone through different things. The reason why this all kick-started is because I'm a barber. I talk to so many people a day.
Yeah.
Everyone's different, but everyone's the same.
Yeah.
Is there anything, sometimes like advice is such like a cliche sort of thing, but is there anything in your life that's happened, or any mindset in your life? You've probably said it.
Yeah.
Any mindset in your life, any advice you could give to anyone else that's definitely helped you? I know you said making up the bed is one thing that you've focused on today, but anything other, or
Yeah, definitely. First off, cliches are only cliches because they're true.
Yeah.
So for anybody that says cliches are cliche, they are, but there is some truth and some wisdom behind them. But as far as advice, or what someone said to me to keep going, is my nan. She's one of the best people that I know. It's my dad's mum. And on a Wednesday when we go round after tea, she makes beautiful tea for me. We'll sit down, have a cup of tea and a cigarette in the kitchen. And whenever I've got an issue, or whenever it's something that I'm stressing about, her main thing is, my mum used to tell me what will be will be. And I think that is it. I think if anybody can take anything away from this podcast, is you've got control over 1.5 things. That's your reaction to a situation and half of your emotions, and that is it. Everything else in life you can positively influence, and that's in your reaction to it. So your reaction can be a positive influence to what you want to achieve, but you can't control whether that is going to succeed or not. You can't control that. You can only positively influence it. And you might, put 5,000 hours worth of work into something, and it might fail at the end. But that doesn't mean it's a failure, because you've done 5,000 hours worth of incredible work and you were so close to it, and so much of that is going to be worth something in your next life or in the next month or your next idea. So I think, primarily just accepts that nothing is under your control other than that 1.5 things. But there's a lot you can positively influence. So
thank you, my man.
thank you very much.
Good talking to you. Thank you for coming on.
That's
and we'll
right.
hopefully have you
6 months time, I reckon.
Yeah,
I reckon that's probably a good time. Yeah.
Thank you, bro.
No worries.
See you in a bit.
Cheers.
Mate,
What their life struggles are at the moment. The little pooch at the door. With what people want.
Monty! Go home. Oh, you get. Just show the people.
The dog. There's the little pooch. Oh, he's gone.
Okay.
Straight away.
Nice.
He didn't like the camera.
What a get.